Okay, and so I think we're live and we're now buffering and streaming to everywhere else. So welcome to the Q&A&Critique number 36. I'm going to start on time today because there is a lot to cover and a lot to go through. So today we have a quite tight pack portfolio based question system. So J-Bar is here connected with JC, Pancakes, Patak, Zach, Cat Devil, and Darren. So thanks for connecting, guys. I'm glad that you're here. So today's topics, we're going to be taking a look at mostly three things. But first things first is, what do you need to show in a portfolio to be hired? Some quick tips and a perspective from a perspective of an employer based on J-Bar's questions. And I've got quite a presentation prepared for you, including some showcased examples of success stories and including my own contextual answers and experience. And then from there, I'm going to be answering two technical questions about denoising just one object, which is a compositing walkthrough with a sample file, and also another one about custom reflections on glass or shiny products, like mixing Eeevee with cycles or whatever. And then at the end, if we have time, I'll be giving you a Painterly update on the project, which I have a lot of, because last week I didn't actually manage to get a good update finished. But if there's time, I'll also be taking a look at the animation principles for, I think it was Slink, if it connects later on today. And so let's begin. So J-Bar, since you're here, would you like to open up your mic and give us a little bit about the context of why your question? You wrote a context here earlier, but I'd love to hear it from you before I read it out. Why are you asking this question about portfolios?
I am asking because I'm planning to get a job. I want a 3D job, and this will be my first time. So I have no idea about portfolio, what it should look like, because I never did an art job, honestly. So that's why I'm asking, because I have no experience in that.
That's a good thing. It's something personal. You're also struggling with the imposter syndrome. You feel like a person that just random
and
art.
Perfectionism, I think, also.
Okay, so I have your portfolio loaded here, actually, so let's take a quick look. You've created a ArtStation website, and you've uploaded some pieces. And they look pretty nice. And you're beginning out here. It's good. Wow, this is interesting. I like this one. Okay.
Actually, those are just pieces from, I would say, from my Twitter, just the grid view. So just to showcase it to you today.
Excellent.
So not really a portfolio.
Okay, so you have a whole list of questions that we were going to take a look through. And basically, one of them, they are how to make a portfolio that stands out, what platforms are better to use for portfolios, and what should I mention in cover letters, and does a 3D artist need a traditional CV or curriculum vitae or a resume? What are good places or websites to look for jobs like CG Architects or other ones that list jobs for animation studios? So let me give you a little bit of my context here, just to give you some idea of where my answers are coming from and to see if they apply or not. So basically, when I started working, are you happy to hear that? Oh, Aaron, you're here. I'm glad you're here, Aaron. So we just began. You haven't missed too much. So basically, oh, and Yannick too. Glad that you could join as well. And Yolms. So basically, my context of portfolio has been relatively and extremely organic. Hello, Aaron. For example, I have been, the largest studio that I was hired was a local studio here that employed about 100 different artists over 5 to 6 months to produce an animated series. outside Blender. I got this job by portfolio to some degree, but I also ran some. I also worked for another small animation studio that ran a YouTube series for national television on the coast here. They have currently 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and they do children's television. This was me as an intern. I would consider this my first 3D job. And on top of that, I've also hired people. So I currently freelance and run my own work, but at the same time, over the past 2 years, I've hired about 12 different talent or 12 different people, and they've all worked for me for different types of projects and different types of work. So the people who've worked for me, they have done modeling, they have done animation, they have done rigging, they have done texturing, they have done mostly modeling actually. So I have a criteria for hiring, and from the people that I choose, and also I have some experience of, okay, so I've applied to international work before. I've done international interviews. I've earned some of them through Upwork, for example, a good client. And I've also discontinued outside of Upwork. We still talk today, even many years later. And I also have worked through rubbing shoulders with other people through Discord and others. So that's my criteria of being hired and hiring, and that's where I'm going to talk to you about those answers. So are you ready? Shall we go through your questions one by one, Jeba? Just to give a quick introduction.
Yeah, I'm ready, go.
All right, let's go. So the first question I have, I'm just going to go skim through your first questions as a basic structure, and then I'm going to go through some key questions to ask yourself, and then things to keep in mind. And then I'll give you some examples. One of them is from Zach, who's here connected today. I highly admire his effort and his website. So Zach, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Looking forward to hear your thoughts.
Great. So I can't wait to ask you about your experience and your portfolio after I give my tips and things. So there's a lot to chow through. And I've also talked with 3 of my other friends here in Colombia who have had some success as well. So let's take a look. All right, so let's go through your questions, and your first one is very important. And I like how you asked this. So how do you make a portfolio that stands out? So we're all clear what a portfolio is. So my basic answer is this: story and impact, not just exercises and experiments. To show that you're efficient, and also to show that you know what you're doing, and to show that you have experience. So when I hired people, for example, of the 12 people that I hired, I must have interviewed maybe 30 at different times. But the things that I needed from them was I needed some experience. I needed to see efficiency, to see if they could work within the time limits. And I also needed to know if they could do the job. So not everybody ticked all the boxes, unfortunately. So I had to hire the best person out of 10, for example, which was still kind of expensive. But basically, I needed to see the abilities of the person. I needed a little bit of a hands-on to know what they could do. And I needed to see if they could get the job done on time. So sometimes I'll give them a test project or like an internship. And with that, those are my criteria, really. So when I talk about story and impact is when you look at a portfolio, the first one that I'm going to take a look at as an example is what's her name? She's a character animation reel or artist. She currently works for the Blender Foundation. Monica Eggert. I don't know her personally, but I admire everything she has done. And she currently worked on the last Blender short film, and she's hired by them right now. So she has a 2-minute reel, which is absolutely stunning because it goes through a number of different styles and it has an incredible story. It's unique. There's like this main character, and she's got on a computer, and she's clicking all these buttons showing different types of exercises and shows and types of animation with drama and action and body mechanics and things like that with 2D, 3D. And I highly recommend her reel as the cream of the crop of an amazing reel. As soon as this came out, she was showcased by Cartoon Brew. I think she was showcased by AD Level, I don't remember. The video went viral, and this was in 2020, and then she got hired by the Blender Foundation immediately because she did this in Blender using the grease pencil as well. So here she is. She's an amazing success story. You can read a bit about her and what she does, but this is a reel that really stands out because of that. It is entertaining. When you look at like any random reels of an artist on ArtStation, for example, you might see a reel with some exercises, some tutorials that somebody did, or an animation principles showcase, or the basic exercises that you see in a reel. To make it really stand out, when I'm looking for an artist as an employer, is I'm looking for somebody who has the vision to capture the story and the needs of the studio or the work that I do, and has the ability to make it come alive. So if you have a story and an impact in a little bit, or narration, I guess you could say, or like a client need that you satisfied, if you can show that, and if you do it in an efficient way, and that you know how to do it with some good breakdowns, and that you have some experience that you've already done it before, even better, then great. That's exactly what I need. I need someone that has vision. I need someone that has the abilities. I have someone that has the self-discipline and the experience to provide a solution to my needs for my clients or for my own original content. So your next question, does it answer that part of the question, J-Bar? I sent the link in the chat so you can take a look. Aaron has shared another useful link about Joe Hobbs, who's talked about this with a really good thread. He's seen some.
Oh, I know Joe.
Ah, yeah, good. He's a lead prop artist and was a senior dev artist in the Frontier games. He's got some good advice there, which I think, should I read it out loud, or you guys can check out the link? We got a lot to go through. All right, so let's move on to the next question, and you guys can check out the link shortly. But basically, what platforms are you better for portfolios? Whatever can show your work. For example, I have a general problem with some of my things with the work that I do. Is like, I haven't had huge success with, for example, ArtStation. I haven't got a single job from ArtStation, but I don't really use it as a portfolio. I've talked to clients on Instagram. I've got work from Facebook. I have had interviews from LinkedIn, and I've had work on Upwork, but I've got the most amount of work from Discord, crazily enough. So for me, I've also had a lot of people talk to me from my website as well. So I like a website because you can customize it for your own self. This is where you can talk about story and impact, because your website can you can use it on a business card. You can use it like a quick .com to talk to somebody. Hey, where's your work? Here's my .com. Instead of searching Instagram / username, blah, blah. Instead of doing that or searching in the thing like that, you can just give them a website address and you're good to go. Somethingrather.com, yourname.com. Nice and easy to remember. But another thing that I find very important is your branding, your professional branding, which is Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, LinkedIn, all the social networks. If you are professional on the public sphere and you have a professional personality, the work that you do, the breakdowns that you do, this generates trust in who you are or what you do, and people start to reach out and talk to you and offer you work. Most of my work comes from this. And this is what you call social networking, because ArtStation is another example. It's kind of like a social network where you can show your best work, or you can use job websites or LinkedIn, for example, or you can be a lot more guerrilla. So, for example, when it comes to your portfolio, you're trying to express these 4 points: that you are efficient, that you know what you're doing, that you have experience, and that you have the ability to comprehend people's needs and provide a solution. And to do that, you need to talk to people. You need to tell them that you can do this. So sometimes some of the work that I get is from crawling contact information and getting to know who is who in what studio with direct conversation. So rubbing shoulders. This sounds daunting because this means you're going to have to understand who is the director of this studio. Can I talk to this person? Can I meet them? Or who is the lead artist for rigging inside this studio? So actually, a lot of my projects has been that I get to know an animator who works in an animation studio, who now works in another animation studio, who referred me because of what I do, and they are not available, so they refer me the information, and we talk, and I got a new client just out of the blue. Or I said hello to another friend who started up his own animation studio, and just at that moment, he needed somebody to do an architectural rendering. So I was like, hey, cool, I got an architectural rendering. And I got that job. Or I know the director of another animation studio, so I got to sit down with him and go through the interview process and kind of be shortlisted to show my reel, show my showcase, and then with that I got hired for a while. So crawling contact information and mapping out who is who is quite important, I consider. With that, what should you do in a cover letter? Aaron has mentioned this as well. He's mentioned good websites like Behance, LinkedIn, Dribbble are the most work-orientated places he feels. ArtStation is like DeviantArt 2.0 now, which is true. He's also had work by just emailing directly to firstname@studio.com with the name of the director, not a public email address, but it got me to straight talk to the person who can make a decision. Which comes to my next experience. There was one point I wanted to get an international job, and I sent out 50 emails to 50 different studios, literally 50 different cover letters to see which one would work, and only one person responded to say, thanks for your application, but we are not looking for someone like you. And my theory is that, yo, Aaron here. Pancakes is asking, what's your statement with your email? But my experience, scientific experience of the test of using cover letters and emails is 50 emails, one reply, denied. It was too much work. I thought, nah, this will never work for me. Is it my portfolio? Is it how I write? Is it how I present my video? What was the problem? So I kind of made a conclusion that sometimes I just get jobs immediately by just talking to people and showing them and talking about what they do. But if I use email, which is antiquated, slow, you can't tell if someone's read the email or not, and it's not interactive, it's not personal, and it's also 20 years old. It's kind of like you're writing a letter 20 years ago to somebody to get a job when email exists. Email has been existing for the past 20 years, so you may need to think of something as slightly more modern and also personal. If you can use email to make it get to somebody directly, then great. But with Aaron's case, he attached a CV, he wrote a little blurb about how he liked the work, he asked a bit about one of the projects to trigger conversation, and then they know you're willing and interested and you have some reason to respond. And that's my next point. You got to keep it personal. You got to keep it connected to the person and understand their needs. For example, a traditional CV, experience improving it, if it's necessary, is a good thing. So if you have something that shows your experience, that shows that you have done the job for somebody before, then it's great. And it's good to have it on hand to send it to them. So we mentioned earlier about different places to look. I find the best tip is for looking for work, go to where the people are. Facebook is the most popular social network. Instagram is a close follow-up. LinkedIn has a lot of users. There's a lot of professional people looking for work on Discord or other artists, including Unreal Slackers, the Houdini server, the Blender servers. And everywhere else, just go where the people are and connect to the people. That's how you find the job, because basically what you're doing is you're trying to find somebody or a group of people who has a need. This need is to create characters. And you are a person who happens to make characters. So to get a job with the people who need characters, you need to communicate, create a communication bridge to say, hey, I make characters. And you need characters. Let's talk. And you make a connection with the people who make the decisions, who hire you. So Zach has linked in a nice cover letter template in the chat, and also Pancakes applied to Boston Dynamics, and he got nothing.
Well, like, just a note on that, it was like I had been using Blender for about a month, and the reason I applied was because I have a background in STEM, and I was like, look, I can do Blender, but you're like, really my selling point here is that I can do Blender and I'm technical, and I still heard nothing. But
yeah, it's a very hard one to get into. You would have to rub shoulders, I think. Pancake Z, he's a good admirable artist that I admire quite a lot. He's also got some good work and promoted recently, I think. He, in all caps, says, always make your cover letter custom. Include one custom portfolio piece at least. I agree. So the job that I got with the animation studio, just to give you an idea, is when I went to the studio, I didn't have a blanket reel. I actually created a custom walkthrough video to get the job. And this has worked for me, not once, but multiple times. So for example, I created a video about rigging, or I created a video about just that particular project that they wanted, or I created a video about just the particular projects which are relevant to what they're looking for in the job interview. So for me, I didn't have like a template video for that particular case, but I actually created a custom video for that particular client just to earn that one client. Let's see if I can find an old one that I did. I didn't prepare this one. Sorry about that. But case in point is what I did for that particular case, for that particular client. So thanks, Zach, for the template. Zach also mentions variations of the cover letter were sent to 32 different studios, usually at least twice to each one. So it was also a quite a large numbers game. So if we go back here, when I think about portfolio, you need to ask yourself and put yourself in your employer's shoes. You need to ask them, what do you need? You need to understand their pipeline and what they're looking for and what are their requirements. This is kind of like client work as well, or understanding a friend, or even doing a favor for your family. Is like, what do you need? So for example, Pancakes agrees with this. He says, for example, if you make an example character that fits into a previous game of your target studio, make it game ready. This will make you stand out from the crowd, and it shows you that you know the studio's body of work and care about them. You need to show them that they are a great fit for you as well. And Aaron also says, also apply for jobs that haven't been advertised yet by proactively putting yourself in front of potential employers. As soon as the job listing goes live, you're in the slush pile with everyone else, which is what I consider important. Like, I got to know most of the directors of the Colombian industry here in Bogota personally, and I added them on Facebook, and I talk to them every now and then. I wish them happy birthday, wish them happy new year. I ask them how's their business, and they keep me queued, and I know what's kind of happening. I know what movies are being worked on. I know what how many people are working in which studio and what things they're working on, etc. And I know kind of a little bit about what's happening. Unfortunately, Colombian salaries are terrible. So I don't often work for Colombians. But the concept is if you have backdoor access to people who are in the know, it will help you a lot better. So things I recommend that you keep in mind is always with your portfolio, your best work is your best bet, obviously. Don't show them your work. Work in progress is to help complement your best work, to show that you know what you're doing. For example, wireframes, composite passes, blocking, splining, and then smoothing it out. How are the statistics of how long it took you to make the project, things like that. Yeah, great. If it complements your best work. Sometimes 1 or 2 or 3 really good things can get you the job and not 100 mediocre things. Quantity, look for quality over quantity. Also, sometimes what you think is good might not be your best work. So get assessment to know what is good for your portfolio. Don't just give out everything you have. Kind of ask your fellow artist friends or your other people who may hire people and say, hey, did you like this? Which one do you think is best? So this is a segue to Zach. Now Zach here, who's actually connected, he talked, hey, you talked to me a while back, and you asked me to review your website, and let's take a look at your website.
Yeah, God, that must have been, what, 6 months ago or so now.
That's right. And here's your website here, which I think is really, really funky. It's got animated video backgrounds. It's got it's really interesting mouse and interactive things. It has a little bit of information here about what's happening. It has this video gallery with a work gallery with different types of projects. Your latest one is about this Poisoned Earth project, which is a work in progress. But recently I've heard rumors you're actually taking on interviews now and about to start an internship, correct?
Yeah, so my unit, so just a little bit of context, I'm at university, I'm 21, so Dutch university lasts 4 years, and usually in the third year you take 6 months to do an internship. You don't have a choice, you have to, you don't pass the degree unless you go out and do real work for a little bit, which is great. But it meant about 4 months ago, I had to start sending portfolios to people to get an internship. Which, yeah, is kind of what I did. And I sent about 30 plus places, dozens of, there must have been like 100 emails in total or so. And about 4 months later, stuff started coming through.
There you go. I'm glad to hear that, actually.
Yeah, but it was the way I go about doing my work is a little bit strange for most for most hardcore animation or game design places, because I don't come from a animation, digital, anything background. I basically picked up a computer for the first time a year and a half ago. So they tend to be interested, but because I'm interested in other things.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know. The projects they're most interested in are the ones that are a lot outside of the computer. So I have projects on performance art. There's some socio-political projects. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff. But yeah, you're welcome to search around my website.
All right. So, case in point, one thing that really stood out to me about your journey about getting new work is that you asked me to take a look at your website, and you did this to multiple people, and you took you were here in the Q&A a little while ago, and we had a look at your website. We gave you some feedback, and you've updated your website, and you've done through a whole bunch of different projects for particular cases. So what you did is you got assessment, which I think is really good, to know what is your best piece, and you cut out all the rest. Same thing with your focus on your target. You realize what your studios want, or where the work is at, and what type of projects they're looking for, and you created those projects. So you understand your focus, you know what they needed, and you provided a solution. So that's a good thing that you need to keep in mind. Rubbing shoulders with people, and also understanding to use digital tools for exactly that, to rub shoulders with people, to get to know who is on the inside and what do they need.
Yeah, actually, on the fourth one, the rub shoulders with people, I may have sent 30 plus emails out to all these different 30 plus places, sorry, all these emails, but the ones which I got responses to were the ones where I had some sort of extremely weird connection with someone lower down in the company.
That's right.
And uncles, girlfriends, goldfishes, grandparents, somebody who works as a cinematographer for a random game company. And as long as the vast majority never looked at my portfolio. In fact, they'd usually call me just because they thought I might have been interesting.
And that's the crazy. Yeah, it happens to me all the time as well. There was one point where I hired one kid because they wanted to work for one studio, and it was his first job doing storyboard art. Later on in life, I hired him again to do some grease pencil art for a music video. And then he got a job for another animation studio. He passed on my name, and then I got to meet the director and to get an interview there. But at one point, I did a competition, and I won that competition because there were only like 3 or 4 contestants. But I got to talk to the guy because it was like a really small, like little film festival of like 15 people, and I got to talk to him. So it was like, hey, we crossed paths. It was a triangular like connection, and then I had the numbers of them, and he called me over, and then I got the job. But after I showed my work as well, right? Like I did have some merit, but it was all like,
I find that the portfolio is sort of the seal the deal. At least that's what I've been finding. Rather than the first thing they'll want to know about is you as a person, what you're interested in, and then afterwards they'll tend to, once afterwards they'll tend to ask about actual hard facts work sort of stuff, and then like the CV tends to be the absolute last thing they look at just to check you're a real person.
Able to do it, exactly, able to do the job. Though not everybody's like this for me. I'm very pragmatic, so even though I know people in the industry and I give them a chance, my preference is I need to get the job done. I need my monies, and the budget that I have is limited, and I need the person who's getting the money, who I'm paying or hiring, to get the job done. So to me, I usually run small little tests. I test people's experience or their dexterity in the computer. I test people's animation skills. I run a little competition or a little like, or even I pay a small bounty to do a task. And if they can do the task within the time frame and do it well, then I will consider them for the job. So to me, it depends. It depends on your employer, I suppose. It's not always.
Yeah, I come from a very biased perspective. I'm looking for internships, so I get paid effectively below the minimum wage, and I tend to be. They know they'll have to teach me stuff. It's the thing I'm going into these jobs with, which is quite unique of a position. So it's probably more common to have some sort of a test before going. As in, they'll want to actually see you can do the job first. Where on my side, they just want to say I have potential to do it.
Pancake says I run 3D Hunger Games. Good one, yeah. And Aaron mentioned earlier that nepotism is alive and well in the CG industry. Yeah, nepotism, it's an interesting concept. But ultimately, we're human. We need to connect with other humans to generate trust. And that's the concept of oxytocin, unfortunately. Darren also mentioned you got to not take it personal. If you get rejected by your ideal studio, for example, don't take it personal. Sometimes you have to be at the right place at the right time and communicate the right message to the right person before you can get the job. But the more you play the game, the higher your chances you get a job. If you just apply to 5 people, it's not going to work. If you apply to 30 people, you'll have a higher chance. If you talk to only like 2 people in the industry, your chances are very low. If you talk to like 30 people in the industry and you all know their names and you all know what everybody does and you've connected with everybody, well, you've just increased your chances exponentially. Right, so exactly. Aaron says with an internship, it's easier because you can leverage your positions once they've trained you into the pipeline. That is correct. I often hire my interns hands down because they know the pipeline, they know how I work, I know who they are, and they've earned their trust. So internships are great for that. Darren also continues and he says, remember, if you're new, they want to know that you are coachable, that you can be taught, that you are a team player. Also, part of the interaction is to determine if they can work with you under pressure and that you don't mess up the team. Grace's situation is different because it's a one-on-one versus a studio where bringing on a new person is a risk to the whole team. Arto says he has Ubisoft near his house, so he might apply there for an internship. So Pancakes Master has an inclination to put music over reel or video. How does everyone deal with licensing issues? What are the concerns or workarounds there? There are a lot of royalty-free sound platforms, and to be honest, I never watch a reel with audio. Never. Unless the actor of the animator is talking. So it's not really important to me, but this is my situation. Very often people take their reel and there's not even speakers plugged into the computer, and you just need to show what you need to do. Since this is a visual job, sometimes the music's not hugely important. So Pancakes has mentioned, it depends who you're showing it to, yeah. Is silent okay, Pancakes Masters? Pancake Z says, another thing is, do not make 3D reels for game art. Only do so if you do animation or visual effects. And do not do it for character, environment, or texture art. Again, this robs time from H&R and is much harder to share. This is like focus your target. So if you know the studio is looking for game art modelers, then have a game art modeling reel. If the studio is looking for character animators, then have a character animation reel. If the studio is looking for environment layout artists, then have an environment layout art reel. So let's go back to my other examples. So Aaron just shared the best ArchViz showreel he has ever seen, which I'd love to see shortly. But here's some close friends that I've talked to earlier. So Jennifer Macias, she's an excellent talent that I've worked with in one of these studios. And she's currently working in game studios. She won a 3rd place in the Retroverse Toon competition for NVIDIA. And she specializes in creating environments. So she is good at what she does, and she has few work, but she has, for example, what she has here. She's showed her her talent by adding in the game company logo and the art, and how she made the art with game assets, with low poly, awesome textures, really cool designs, things like that, directly on her ArtStation with breakdowns and descriptions of what she did, how she did, why she did it, and also the prizes that she's earned and some breakdowns and things like that for the different projects. She also has been offered work internationally for visas as well, possibly, and has been, she's always busy. I've always wanted to hire her, but she's a high demand artist and highly talented and works very well, very open to share her abilities, and working with her was super useful. She helped me get clued up in the animation studio when I was there. So I highly recommend this as a nice example of what she did. She's only putting up her best work and showcasing the logos and things like that. She even got showcased on 80 level once. So with that, well, make the most of it. She's specialized in environment art. Another artist which I work with often is Ricardo Oyos. He gets me work. He also does a lot of work for himself. He also was recently offered work internationally with a studio in Australia, and there was a lot of different things that he does. But he specializes in level layout and lighting and cinematics for game art. So he does the same thing. Game engine logo, the game studio or the game that he worked on, the type of, he's also done fan art to work on the type of things that he would like to work on, for example, The Last of Us 2. And he's showcased all of this in his work based on to show those points. He's got experience, he's got the ability to understand the studio's needs, and he's showed his best work. There are some jobs that I've seen him do which are not here because he's worked a lot, but I know that he does work well, and working with him is always a pleasure. And he also outsources to me all the time. So there you go. It's who you know. But his way of showing his art is that concept of like the technical aspects, the different things of his work. Great. So he's a good success as well that gets the international jobs. Another friend of mine, Guillermo, I've hired this guy, worked with him often from a very long time ago, and I would hire him again if I had proper work available. Definitely, hands down. I love how he works. I love his work ethic. He's a really cool, calm guy. He's super talented with what he does. He doesn't use my pipeline, unfortunately, but as a concept, he has recently started specializing his portfolio into grooming. So he's getting a lot of work from people looking for artists who groom. And this is where the concept of focus with your skills and showing the best work of your focus gets you more of that work. If you understand the studio's needs, then you can get better work. So with that gives you an idea of like, okay, so let's go back to those concepts. It's like you need to keep in mind that your best work is your best bet. Get some assessment from other artists to know what is your best bet. Focus on your target. How do you provide a solution for what need? Rub shoulders with the right people, and use the digital tools available to get to know who's on the inside and to communicate with them. Whatever the platform, whatever the method. Another example is, for example, I got work in Upwork, which is a job website. This was my only job. As soon as I got the interview, the guys liked what I did. They gave me work. A year later, they gave me more work. Another couple of years later, they gave me even more work. So over a 5-year span of getting to know this guy, just through that one time, that one contract I had in Upwork, I made a friend who knows people in the United States, which sometimes gets me work every now and then because he trusts that I do the job and I do the job well because of experience. But maintaining those connections is super important. And that's the part of like rub shoulders with the right people. Does that answer your question, J-Bar? I know there's a lot of information, but does this help?
Yes, a lot actually. I'm just now worried about that I don't think I have these good pieces of art I could show. So, not very complex projects.
Okay. So in this case, you need to think about, okay, so what are your abilities? Well, your modeling and procedural modeling is on point. Your architectural work is on point. And your product renders are pretty decent. So what I would focus is try to find that focus. Focus on the things that you're great at and what you think you could work at and the type of solution you can provide somebody. So for example, product renders, architectural rendering, game asset modeling, which I think you did an excellent job with, and then showcase those strengths with your work. Everything else, the motion graphic stuff, is very generic. It's good, I like it, but at the same time, does it help me with publicity? Does it help me with creating a television spot for a title, or does it help me? It's hard to know what type of solution these art pieces are trying to provide. You need to just evaluate yourself a little bit. The mice heist one, the architecture one, these two pieces are the ones that stood out to me because as an employer working in publicity or in architecture, these two, for me, are the most useful. And so you got to step into the shoes of your potential employer and generate that trust. I have something useful for you or your business. Zach also mentioned he's found that you want to show personal projects to possible employers, not work you've been paid to do. Make sure you can talk about their story. That's the concept. Personal projects should always have a larger scope than what you actually accomplished. Not only does it show you can add a narrative to your art, but it also states that you can think further than the confines of 3D software and its exercises and technicalities. And that's super important, what I mentioned at the beginning. Is an inspiring portfolio has story, it has an understanding of a vision, and your work to try to provide that vision is extremely valuable. So I hope that helps.
Yes, it does.
All right. So how are we doing for time? It's very short. I might have to leave the... Aaron says it's super useful to see my perspective. Arthur Freire says he loves your work, J-Bar. How you're presenting it. You can make the most complicated things on the planet, but his final renders looks really bad. No, it doesn't, Arto. Pancake says simple art can be executed perfectly. That is true. Some of these pieces are nice. Sometimes you gotta work it through. Darren says the idea that your work is good enough is a normal concern. Remember though, the customer decides if it's good enough. In an odd way, it's liberating. You no longer have to worry about if it is good enough. You can work on your craft, you can improve, and when the work is in front of the person who has a problem, you can solve. Then it's a match. And Pancakes says, I can only say as the most important tip, do the extra work. Make as much as you think is enough and double it. The quality as well. So thanks Darren and Pancakes and everyone who's been writing in the chat with all these little texts and things. So now we have 10 minutes left on today's stream. So I'm going to give you guys a choice since we're going to wrap it up. We have a walkthrough concerning lighting the animation principles with one of these rigs that I've created. An introduction to the animation principles, which I'd like to touch next week. We also have a concept of custom reflections, of how to define reflections in product showcases. We also have the concept of rendering passes of rendering reflections separate from the actual data, so you can make cycles with Eeevee, for example, and how to do that, which is an expansion from last week. Or I can give you guys a quick update of the Painterly project. Which one would you like to do? Painterly, says Arto. Darren says animation. Pancakes has mentioned that he's working on the pill bottle as an exercise and didn't make one of the infinite loops. Now it's his most popular tweet because he pushed through the extra factor. For what it's worth, it's completely worth putting in the extra effort. So I got one vote for Painterly, one vote for animation principles. Several people are typing. Oh, the emotion. The suspense is killing me. Which path shall we go down for the end of today? All right, Pancakes Master, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for sharing as well. Can't wait to see more of your work. Painterly. We got 2 votes for Painterly. All right, let's do it. And let me just load up my Painterly project. Gonna take a while. 1 second as I find it. And then we can talk of the animation principles next week. Sound good? So the Painterly project has had quite a large update. I've been working on creating some looped animation and a quick animatic, and I've been pushing my sunny rain Painterly effect, which I have finished. It is now working. It has color tuning controls, and my theory of the sunny rain technique was a 100% success, and I'm very proud of it. So basically, instead of using post-processing inside the post-processing concept inside the canvas, which gave me the shower door effect, sunny rain effect gives me the ability to use volumes of paint particles in 3D space to create what I need to create. So it's going to take a while for the shaders to compile, so just give me a moment. Let me just review. It's going to take a long, going to bug out. There we go. So I'll let it compile and I'll go take a look at some photos. So let me bring up PureF. Here it is. Okay, and let me load up the work from this week. The first things first is I actually got a splash screen done for B for Artists, which is nice, which is part of a art test. So here it is in viewport, just me scrubbing the timeline just to see how it works. But basically I minimized the canvas, and the canvas now has the borders and everything okay, animated with blending. But you see this blurry effect in the paint around the background, this blue tint and this yellow tint and things like that. These are actually brush strokes. Or here underneath the arrow, there's kind of like this fuzzy ball of paint strokes on top of my Painterly effect in the world. This is created using geometry nodes, and it's using the 3D post-processing of the brushes in 3D space so that I can rotate, move, pan, track, or zoom the camera, and these brush strokes would be stuck inside 3D space, creating spatial coherence. So I did some tests with some color now. So for example, here's the closer version. You can see the paint strokes here kind of smudging and creating this like brushed in erratic energy that I wanted. Well, here in the background, I'm painting out the buildings in the background with this, or painting the bloom around the color of the world or the lights. I'm using it to create the depth of field behind these other strokes up here. So I wanted that detail set up inside the 3D space, and it worked out quite nicely. Another concept, let's see, here's like, I just changed the color. So another thing as well is with this 3D brushstroke concept, I can actually control the color how I want it to be. So I can do some quick color tests. So if we take a look here, I changed it to white. I changed it to red. I changed it to black to kind of test the colors directly in the viewport without needing to re-render or test anything, which was super handy. So with that, I could like vote with the Discord community and the other artists to kind of define which has the best readability to kind of help me understand where I should go with the shape language and the color language of this project. So conclusion is I have to use luminance contrast, so dark on light or light on dark, and also use color contrast, red with green or red with blue, or different analogous or complementary or triadic color contrast on the wheel to kind of bring out the shapes of what I need. Even though I have harmonious colors here, which got quite a few votes as well, the readability due to the lack of contrast was difficult. So I had to work that a little bit. Other things that I worked on for this week was improving the shape language of models, because I was finding that some of my models' shape language was not clear enough, so I had to improve it. And other things as well is I started working on creating my rules, I guess you could say, for character rendering. So the world, I can have it in Painterly, but I still need some readability with the characters, so I've decided to use baked grease pencil inside the 3D space to kind of add in this like chalk or pencil or pen outlines onto the actual animated character art. And with that, I've actually I have some videos of that on my Twitter or here as well. It's just loading that up. It's also a lot more performant. So for example, the line art modifier for grease pencil is not very fast. It's very slow, in fact. So for animation and stuff, it's not great. But I can rig the grease pencil to my characters if I bake the lines onto my mesh, frozen in time, and then the modifier stack for the rustling of the animation works perfectly fine. So I had fun with that, doing these tests to kind of help with the readability. So here's one with the same color tones, and it helps me to read what is the actual hero asset regardless of the paint texture in the background. As you can see, here's the paper, the 3D materials and 3D space are here with the smudges, the paint breaking up on the edge of the paper here. This is a low sample render, but it's you get the general idea that using these lines here, I can actually read my character or the hero asset a little bit better, and with color even more so. So I can also play around with different types of techniques and things. So with that, I started creating a character. So this is the first character that I'm working on right now. He is called M447. The M447 is a party bot, and he's designed to be a mobile party, pretty much. He's got a great personality. He's a great fun party energy, and he's a really cool guy. And you can practically DJ on him in the back here. So I added some DJ consoles. He crouches and kind of uses his hands, kind of like laser lights controls, and you can position the sound however you want. And this is my first character that I'm currently working on. And with that, it comes with some tests and stuff like that. So this was this week. Last week, I also had progress concerning, here I am testing the 3D effect, I guess you could say. 1 second. So here I'm just testing like the color controls of my system, and also testing like how it kind of feels in 3D space. I can create kind of a false depth of field with the paint, so I can bring it in or out. Oops, here it is. There you go, so zoom in, zoom out, bringing it to focus, bring it out of focus with the paint. Change the colors to however I want to kind of create the color bloom that I need. And change the color of the whole world if I want to, things like that. Or with custom parameters. Also improved, here we go. Here's another example of using it in 3D space. I think this one was actually pushed to Twitter. But here it is. If I move the camera around, you can see the brushstrokes in 3D space for spatial coherence and atmosphere without that shower door technique. So those are the updates from the past 2 weeks, pretty much. Just testing out new shots, testing out different, starting to test out animation, starting to test out coloring, composition, working the assets, and actually starting to test them in layout, and also understanding how I can use them and use the setup in the layout. I can animate the things nice and quickly. What type of bottlenecks am I going to find in the production? It's kind of like I'm testing everything to bring out what I need to do, including paint overs as a color study as well. You know, what colors work for what world, what's the type of composition, working on the paint overs to see how I should what things do I need to model, what things don't I need to model, how can I apply the geometry nose trees, and after doing, for example, how can I improve, for example, a 3D render, which is this one here, and then I do a paint over to fix the colors. How can I fix the colors? How can I fix the composition? That's basically what I've been working on. So the creative aspect of the project is now pushing forward, and I'm doing it early so that when I block out the animatic, it's very close to done, and I just need to focus on fine-tuning the animation and colors. But the actual rendering quality and the lighting quality, I don't have to worry about this. I do this before I actually block out everything and define the pipeline before I actually work the entire animation. So I hope that gives you a quick update. That has been 1 hour. Pancake says nice work. Java says this is beautiful. Plebs has asked a question. Oh, and Zach says it looks fantastic in high res. Roto says great work. Thanks guys. I hope you enjoy the progress. There's a lot more to come. Rigging, animation principles, blocking, layout. There's a lot of work to come. There's still a lot to do. So every week I'll keep you updated on the progress. And hopefully next week we can actually find rendered with the new art style. There it is in 3D space. And here's the actual technique with the pen shapes, dark lines drawn over. I'm using a marker in this case to draw in the details of the model with the painterly animated effect that I have in the 3D space with everything else. To kind of get that temporal coherence without jittery frames, and spatial coherence with the actual design of the model in the 3D space, and the spatial coherence with the 3D post-processing effects of the brush strokes and the canvas. So it's shaping up. Things are looking good. I'm very happy with it so far. Next week I'll give you more updates. We're going to talk a little bit about the animation principles for Slink. And just to go back to the concept of today. Today was about portfolios. Pleber's asking a little late, but that's okay. He says about crawling or rubbing shoulders. He's looking to get an internship at Blend Effects, a small studio nearby. I think they already have an intern right now. Should I reach out to them on Twitter or social media and ask what they would like to see for a portfolio and how to apply? Or does this kind of give them the chance to say no before I can even show something? Arrange for an interview. Your first bet for a job is an interview. So Darren has an answer as well. In general, the amount of energy and friction that can be reduced, the better. If you can ping them on social media, there's a presumption that they will stop what they're doing to address your needs. This can increase friction because they might not have a need at all and you're making a request. If you offer something, then it will be a smooth transition. For example, hey Blend Effects, I saw your project X and I made this in whatever program. I'm using the same colors and themes, yada yada. What kind of programs are part of your workflow? You are showing that you aren't just asking from the transaction. For me, typically, is if I can get an interview, I can get the job. If I can talk to somebody, understand, listen to them, listen to what they need, if they need anything, and then provide them a solution and the evidence that I have the ability to help them, then I've earned the job. If I can get that interview, that's all I need. So that's what you need to do as well. It's just see if you can get that connection so there's the least amount of friction for them to not listen to you. Darren says it's just a simple example. There's a lot of work for simple responses. It's easier to go to a mixer party or a pre-post pandemic party, talk to a friend who's in the system, and show that you're interested in the product to work with. Zach also mentions, I will send a bunch of emails first, not just to the company address, try to find individual people and make friends. If they say no, then it gives you a chance to ask the questions of where there will be an opening. And they say, oh, I might know somebody who is looking. You know what? I like you. I'll give you, you should meet this person. And you start to kind of web your way through the world. And Darren also says, on social media, they have no idea if you are somebody in the same location. So if you could hook them up in a local aspect, even as simple as like hashtag the city name you're in, then it might make things a little bit easier. Pleb says, this exactly answers my thoughts. Thank you. Inan says thank you too. And Slink says he couldn't join, but that's okay, Slink. I will keep the animation principles for you next week. It's going to be chock-a-block as well. So everybody, feel free to open your mics. Thanks for your time here. I'll be here next week on Thursday. Same time, same place. Keep the questions coming. Keep the ideas flowing. Keep your curiosity strong. Thank you for listening to me rant today. I hope it was interesting and I hope you learned something, and I'm happy to share the progress of the Painterly project with you as well. I really hope you have an excellent day. And I will stop the stream here.